It's a rare occurrence for a guard who can score at a high level, a highly regarded recruit, and provides a ton of highlights to be going under the radar, but it seems like that is exactly what is happening with Keyonte George. That may just speak to how deep this draft class really is. Keyonte, for what it's worth, was by no means a disappointment at Baylor, coming in as the highest rated recruit in program history. He showed his unreal scoring upside and looked good in other aspects as well. How will that scoring translate? Does he have downsides that make him hard to draft? Let's find out. George was highly regarded from the beginning. As a freshman, he was a phenomenal performer for Louisville High School, averaging 21 points and 2 steals a game. He followed that up with a 24 point per game year as a sophomore. After that, he transferred first to I School of Louisville as a junior and IMG Academy as a senior. For IMG, he got the exposure at the highest level of high school basketball and ended up as a top 10 recruit by all major ranking publications. He chose a school in his home state, Baylor, over interest from various other top programs. He performed well there, but what were some key traits that he showed that indicate how effective he will be at the next level? Let's get into that now. So on shooting, Keyonte seems to project as a player that may not initially be a knockdown shooter percentage-wise, but eventually becomes a guy you can't leave open around the arc. As of now, you take the cons with the pros. While he can sometimes be inconsistent, especially against some higher tier competition, he combines a good looking shot with some pretty deep range to show that he is both confident and talented as a shooter, and it may only be a matter of time before he improves his percentages here. He was a 34% shooter from deep, and with the volume of which he was taking them, that's not awful, even if it's not proficient. The shots he's taking are usually pretty good shots, though sometimes the point in the offense that he's taking them is questionable. I am confident in his development as a shooter, all things considered, and while he seems to project as more of a creator in the league, I think he has the talent to become a guy who could spot up and knock down some catch and shoot looks. I think the potential for that is also there, 100%. So on a similar wavelength to the most recent prospect I covered in the series, G.G. Jackson, Keyonte George looks like an absolute elite shot creator, and one of the best available shot creators in the draft range. He should be available. While G.G. employs a mix of craftiness and strength to get his shots, Keyonte George combines an electric handle and impressive speed out of his moves to open up shots both around the perimeter and in the paint. He isn't a huge mid-range guy, but teams tend to love that. He tries to focus his game around the most efficient shots, either layups or threes, and the analytics love him for it. When you look at Keyonte, you think that this is the type of player that is going to bring offense in abundance immediately upon being drafted if he gets the minutes. He is the prototype of player that probably will initially come off the bench, but when he does, he's going to find a way to get his buckets. Just an incredibly skilled scorer who employs a wide mix of crossovers and step backs to free up space and score. While I mentioned in the shooting section that as of now he may not be the absolute best shooter as far as percentages go, if he gains efficiency when it comes to that, he definitely already has the creativity in his repertoire to take advantage of any improvements in his shot that may come. The one thing I kind of touched on already is the fact that he focuses on doing two things in his offensive game, his three-point shooting and his finishing at the rim. When it comes to his rim attacking, he does a really good job. His primary means of scoring by getting to the rim is initiating contact. He prioritizes getting into the defender, and off of this, he either scores through contact or manages to draw the foul. He is really good at utilizing the drive in this way. I like how he utilizes his handle and craftiness in one-on-one situations to get into the paint. And when he gets there, he does have the ability to finish strong and with both hands. This trait, alongside his skill set in shooting and general shot creation, really bodes well for his prospects as performing as a pure scorer in the NBA. Keyonte George is definitely not a black hole on the offensive end. You see a lot of guys with his skill set forcing way too much, and I definitely don't see that being the case with him. You'll be able to see in some of the clips here, but he does a very good job coming off of screens and finding the roll man. He is pretty good at making reads outside of that as well, however. He is not the perfect playmaker, and there are definitely some flaws on this end for him. Mainly that he simply sometimes makes bad reads and errant passes, but obviously you want to see this improved a little bit. But at the very least, you can say that it is at least a positive that he is a willing and able passer on this. May not be a perfect passer, but he is willing to make that pass if it is there. Now, what you tend to see with a lot of some of the score-first guards coming into the league is that they're quite poor in the defensive end. They either make bad reads, are too aggressive in pursuing steals, can't keep a guy in front of them, or they just generally lack effort. For me, I don't think this is actually as much of an issue with Keyonte as it is with other guards of his style. I don't think he's a standout defender, but he isn't as bad as you may think he could be based on the style of player he is. Let's get the negatives here out of the way first. He does occasionally switch off and get beat backdoor, and his size will almost certainly hurt him in the pros when guarding bigger players. He doesn't have a great deal of versatility in the type of players he can guard. I would really be confident with him guarding 1s and 2s. Any bigger than that, and he's likely to really struggle to stick with him as far as strength goes. He also struggles a little with guards that are very quick. They sometimes have the ability to get by him and get to the rim, as he is laterally pretty average in my opinion. On the positive end, however, he is really intense on ball when he gets locked in. He does a very good job sticking to the player he is guarding and preventing them from getting space to open up a shot. He's also pretty active in the passing lanes. Defense in general is a bit hit or miss for him. Don't expect him to be locked down, but I wouldn't assume he'll be a massive liability either. I think he'll be fine on this end. There's been a variety of instant offense type guards in the league throughout the years, so there's no real shortage of guys you can compare Keyonte to. Today I'm going to go with Jordan Clarkson. I mainly go here because I feel as though Clarkson moves similarly, is of a similar size, and has a skill for scoring first, obviously, but also isn't an awful passer. And while defense is definitely not his strength either, he doesn't appear to be a massive liability here, at least recently. I feel as though if a team expects a Jordan Clarkson type player with a mid-teens pick, you can't go too wrong with Keyonte George. There's absolutely some kind of value in a guy who can get you offense, especially off the bench, while operating as a secondary ball handler for the second unit. In conclusion, you pretty much know what you're going to get with Keyonte George. What it comes down to is how good is he going to be at that when he gets to the league, and that, of course, is being a pure scoring threat. I think he's got some potential here, but I don't know how much potential he has as a focal point of an offense. I really project him to be very similar to, like I said, Jordan Clarkson, maybe a Lou Williams type of player who is really dangerous as an off-the-bench scoring player, and while he's not terrible at a lot of other ancillary categories, he's not proficient at them either, and I'm not quite sure how likely it is that he gets to that point where he could be any more than a spot scorer off the bench. I do think that he has the potential to do so. There just is definitely some questions when it comes down to his size, his decision making, and his defense. There are a lot of guys in the NBA that can score. Cam Thomas, for example, is probably the best pure scorer on the Nets and genuinely probably an upper tier scorer in the league. I mean, if he gets a ton of minutes, he's going to be scoring 20 points a game, in my opinion, but it's those other categories that keep you on the floor, and that's the reason that Cam Thomas doesn't play that much for Brooklyn. I do think that Keyonte George does have a higher chance of being good at those other categories, but as of right now, he isn't quite there yet, and so for that reason, it definitely makes sense that he's projected to go late lottery to late teens as a draft range. The star potential does exist. It is there. He really could end up like a Bradley Beal type, but he's got to really sharpen up the defense and decision making. I feel like he needs a lot of focus on his improvement areas before you can say that he'll be able to reach that level, but I do like him as a prospect. But that will conclude this video. Appreciate you all watching as always. If you like what you saw here, like and subscribe for more content. This will be the last prospect video I plan on having before the draft. However, I do plan on putting out a video focusing on all the lottery prospects as a whole and how good of a value all of those players are based on where they are currently being mocked to go. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye out for that video. But with that, that'll conclude this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hey, thanks again for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you just saw, go ahead and click one of these videos here to see some more of our content.